The Chargers have a huge decision to make on whether or not they are going to pick up Quentin Johnston's fifth-year option, and me and David disagree on whether they should or not.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, man? Welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers together now for 10 seasons, but this is our 8th year as host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day as part of the #1 sports podcast network. And David, we have a big one today, Quentin Johnston's fifth-year option, and we might not agree on what they should do.
We don't agree, and I am going to make the case that the Chargers should pick up his fifth-year option, and you are going to make the case that they are not.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So let's give kind of the background here of what the Chargers have to decide on and the important parts of this, because the Chargers will have to decide before next season starts if they're going to pick up Quentin Johnston's fifth-year option. Since he was a first-round pick, they have the choice to keep him for potentially 5 years, and if they don't, he'll only be on the roster, or count against your cap for the 2026 season, and after 2026, he'll become an unrestricted free agent. So it's just about getting, what you're hoping for is that by picking it up, you're going to save yourself some money, because what you're going to pay him potentially after 2026 is going to be more than what he would make on the fifth-year option. And what the number looks like right now, according to Over the Cap, is that the Chargers would have to pay Quentin Johnston a fully guaranteed $18 million in 2027 if they're going to pick up that fifth-year option. They don't have to make the decision now. They only have to make it by May 1st, but it's a big decision that they have to make, and the problem is they won't be able to make it before they see how this season unfolds and how he fits in Mike McDaniel's offense. But David, as we sit here right now at the end of February, you think the Chargers should pick it up?
I do. I think the Chargers should pick it up because he has improved year over year, and he has a unbelievable ability to get in the end zone and score touchdowns, and that is very, very important. So you look at some of the guys that are around the dollar amount per year that he is set to make if they pick up his fifth-year option, somewhere in the 17 to 17.5, $18 million range. You got a guy like Jeudy who had a pretty big season in 2024 where he went over 1,200 receiving yards, but only 4 receiving touchdowns. In 2025, that dipped. He only had half the receiving yards and only 2 touchdowns. That's 6 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. Deebo Samuel, $17.5 million per season, making about 26th amount of money per year at $17.5 million per year on average. In 2024, he only had 670 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. In 2025, it was 727 yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown. That's only 10 combined receiving touchdowns. Quentin Johnston has 16 receiving touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, and I think there's a lot of reasons to believe that that's going to continue. That's 8 more than Deebo. That's 11 more than Jacoby Myers. That's 12 more than Jeudy, and twice as much as Cooper Kupp. So Quentin Johnston has improved year over year, and he has a knack for getting in the end zone.
He definitely does. I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. His 16 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons per True Media, that ranks 5th in the league over that span, ahead of guys like Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, C.D. Lamb, Nico Collins, just to name a couple. The problem is that playing receiver isn't just about scoring touchdowns, right? Because then you look at, the other parts of being a receiver that matter, and he's 56th in receptions over the last couple of years, the last 2 seasons. He was 62nd in receptions last year. His 1,446 yards over the last 2 years, that ranks 43rd in the NFL, and just last year was 40th, according to True Media. So that's the guy that you're going to be paying, because if you give him that $18 million, you are making him, as of right now, and more guys are going to get paid, and those numbers will change a little bit, but as of right now, $18 million would make him the 24th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Do you think that he is going to be a top 25 receiver after next season?
I think there's a very good possibility that he could be if he continues to grow. Yeah.
No, not top 25. I mean, Lad McConkey wasn't even a top 10 receiver last year, right? Maybe, last season he was probably top 20. He was the Chargers' best receiver, right? Keenan Allen was the second best receiver that they had. He wasn't a top 30 receiver last year by the metrics, right? Quentin Johnston is I think at best is going to be a very good wide receiver 3 for you, right? Maybe at the top end, like he scores touchdowns, which is great, but it's not all touchdowns are scored equally, right? He deserves all the credit that he, for the touchdowns he scored, but it's not because they're throwing it and he's just mossing dudes in the end zone and he has just become like a red zone weapon like that. They were throwing him deep balls. He had several of them, and it's not a fluke to get 16 touchdowns over 2 years. But it goes a lot further than that, right? Like there is so much more than just scoring touchdowns. And like, this is the thing. You have to say that when the next season is over, that he would make more than $18 million on the open market. You look at the guys that are making more than $18 million, Jacoby Myers, Nico Collins, Mike Evans. He's not in the same class as those guys. All of those guys have, at least one, but in most cases, many more 1,000-yard receiving seasons. And to me, I think for Quentin Johnston to make more than that, he would have to have a 1,000-yard season. And I think that's probably where the biggest disconnect is for me, because I think Lad McConkey's going to have a 1,000-yard season for sure in 2026. We just had the conversation on the buy or sell show the other night, whether both of them could go over 1,000. And I don't think he can. So I think, if he's going to have an 800-yard, another 8-touchdown season, I think what it'll cost is probably around that, but at least you get to see it in what it looks like this offense this season, because that is the toughest part of this. But I think there's one thing we can both agree on. I think we're about to see the best season that Quentin Johnston and most efficient season that Quentin Johnston's ever had. So we're going to talk about that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Indeed sponsored jobs, because if you have something in a position you need to get fixed, this is the best way to do it. Workplace chaos, deadlines are stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs, because Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location, so you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to the Indeed data worldwide. So spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now to support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. I also need to tell you guys that as the year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're #1 rated by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why recipe ease is very important for me, because I am not Chef Boyardee. I need all the help I can get. And these are very easy for me, so I know they're going to be very easy for you. And I love the variety, over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Or they have quick lunch options if that's what you need. But everything arrives pre-portioned, so there's less prep, less mess, and no wasted food. Plus, you can save some money. Groceries are expensive, and Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active member to receive the free dessert. I also need to ask you guys, if you've ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, you might have a chance to do that with FanDuel, because FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience taken care of, so you can have that bucket list moment. If you're already looking at your board and wondering which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time, because you have this going on with FanDuel, and I love futures this time of year because I think you're finally actually getting to know what these teams are and actually seeing these teams try down the stretch. And right now, Oklahoma City's the prohibitive favorite to win the entire thing at plus 135, but that just means you get great juice on teams like the San Antonio Spurs at plus 950, the Boston Celtics at plus 1200. So many different ones to do, but just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. David, let's get into a little bit more of this Quentin Johnston fifth-year option conversation, though, because I think the one thing that me and you, even if we don't agree on whether or not they should give it to him, I think we both agree that this should be the most efficiently and the best we've ever seen Quentin Johnston used this season, when you have Mike McDaniel at the calling the plays, who has something, a huge litany of experience getting guys in space and using guys that are like Quentin Johnston.
Yes, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do in this offense. He is born to play in an offense like this, where the quick passing game, all the creative ways that they get the ball in the hands of the playmakers, that's what Quentin Johnston does the best. He turns into an absolute animal with the ball in his hands. He's very difficult to tackle. He can run around you. He can run through you. He has some shake in the open field. That's when he's at his most dangerous, and he has never, ever been used enough in that way. They've tried to put a round peg into a square hole, and it just hasn't really worked. Has he gotten better? Has he improved in some of those things that they've asked him to do that he's not well suited at? Yeah, he absolutely has. Catching the ball over his shoulder, being able to go get the deep ball, the contested catch is all much, much better. Is that the best and most efficient use of his talent? No, it is not. And I am a huge believer in what Mike McDaniel's offense is going to do for Quentin Johnston. And as we kind of foreshadowed, I think it's going to be the best year of his NFL career.
Yeah, and for all the struggles that he has, and the way they tried to use him definitely didn't help that, right? And Mike McDaniel's not a guy that believes in a jump ball offense or even having receivers you need to have to go win 50-50 balls or have 50-50 balls be a part of what the offense wants to be. But it is a guy who, at least last year, over 50% contested catch rate for the first time at 52%. 7th in the NFL of anyone with 50-plus targets and passer rating when targeted this year. And more importantly than that, even with all of that, still 13th in missed tackles forced in 2025, which tells you how good he could be in this offense specifically, because let me tell you what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were able to do after the catch in Mike McDaniel's time in Miami. In 2023, both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle ended up in the season top 12 in yards after the catch, with 1,080 yards after the catch is what those guys combined for in 2023. In 2022, both those guys ranked in the top 10 in yards after the catch. That is what this offense brought. Now, it's different, and you don't have Tua, so you don't need everything to be after the catch, right? But this is a guy who's a wizard at using motions to help players get a running start. And it honestly helps the guys most who struggle with getting off the line of scrimmage at time, right? And per True Media, Quentin Johnston has ranked 20th in the NFL over the last 2 seasons in yards after the catch per catch at 5.1 yards. And we know that he hasn't even really been put in those positions, David. Like, he's done that despite them not actually using him in, yards after the catch situations.
Yeah, they've only done it a handful of times. It seems like it's once or twice every 3 or 4 games, and it seems like whenever they do get the ball in his hands, it goes for 7 or 8 yards at least every single time. So logic would tell you, maybe we should be doing more of this, especially if we don't have the amount of protection we need to throw it deep down the field. Why not get into the hands of an obvious playmaker, yards after the catch demon like Quentin Johnston? It just makes too much sense. And now you have a play caller who majors in doing that at the highest level.
When I think where it's really going to kind of unlock this offense is you use the quick game so much, and I think especially early on in the season, where you make them have to respect it and you make them not be able to cheat and disguise coverages at the line of scrimmage. Because if you want to creep up and have your linebackers go pretend that they're coming through the A-gap, you're leaving a lot of space in the middle of that field for Quentin Johnston to get a runway to do some nasty things after the catch. So even though I don't know if he's putting up, 1,000, 1,200 yards, I think this is easily going to be the most efficiently we've ever seen Quentin Johnston used. And this is, I had faith with Kellen Moore, right, in the 1 year there, and that just ended up being the entire season was a disaster, that he would try to use Quentin Johnston the best way possible. And even then, I didn't really feel it, right? Like, it didn't feel like Quentin Johnston was used the way that he should be used as somebody who turns into a running back, as you put it, with the ball in his hands. So I think this is the best we're ever going to see for Quentin Johnston, and hopefully he gives the Chargers a tough decision to make when they have to decide to re-sign him or not. Because, the only bad thing is you might only have Mike McDaniel for that one season to kind of get the most out of him. So we'll see how
Hopefully
it goes.
not.
But I do think it's going to be the best season in Quentin Johnston's career. But make sure you guys are back tomorrow for the rest of the Locked On Chargers Unleashed crossover with Jake Hefner. To make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as finding the show every day on all of our social media at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. But the best way to never miss the show is subscribing or following for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and making sure that you're subscribing wherever you get your audio podcast from as well. But we'll be back tomorrow with the rest of the Chargers Unleashed Locked On Chargers crossover. But until then, guys, take it easy and go Bolts.